All right, hello everyone again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And for the online AWD application and web development 1100 C# programming class for the spring 2024 semester, I have been doing a series of videos that have been basically based on the PowerPoints slides that come with the textbook. All right, so far, and I sent this email out yesterday, I've got about 15 videos in here. And what I have typically been doing since about chapter 4, I guess, is I do the payroll app, then the PowerPoints, payroll app, PowerPoints, etc. As you can see, and I've been pretty consistent with that. I'm going to break that trend in this chapter. I'm going to do the PowerPoints first. Now, it may or may not make a lot of sense as to why I'm doing that, but I'll show you in just a little bit. All right, so let's get into this. So Chapter 9 is how to work with dates and strings. And for our applied objectives here, given the date handling requirements of an application, write the code that satisfies these requirements. Given the string handling requirements of an application, write the code that satisfies these requirements. Given the formatting requirements of an application, use the format method of the string class or interpolated strings to provide formatting. Our 3 knowledge objectives, and I think that's it. Yep. Describe the way a datetime variable is stored. Explain the differences between a string object and a string builder object. And describe the use of interpolated strings for joining and formatting operations. Now, dates are an interesting thing. All right. You'll notice that with a date, there's different ways that you can set it up. And I'm not going to go through any of these examples here other than these first two, just to let you know that on this one here, we've set a new date, start date, to be January 30th of 2023. Since we didn't put in a time, the time typically will default to midnight, 00:00:00 a.m. Here we've done it, and it's using military time, so it is 2:15 p.m. All right? And you'll notice that when we do this, it's of type date time. All right? And you're creating a new date time object. In addition, there is a datetime.parse. So if you put something in and you put it in that kind of a format, all right, it'll parse it for you. And there's different kinds of formats that you can use. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to do something like this. Okay? And what I'm expecting is that a person's going to put the date in this type of format here. All right, and we'll see how that works. That's about all I can tell you when we get to that point. So here are some valid date formats. You'll notice I'm going to tell the person that I want them to put it into a a month, day, year format. The first one. The second one can be tough because what I'm assuming here, and you'll see this in a couple minutes, is that the company that this payroll thing is set up for started in 1999. In fact, they started January 1st, so they just celebrated their 25th anniversary. But the reason that I did that was I didn't want this to be 1923 or 2023, or I should say 2099. I wanted it to be 1999. So I'm going to expect that I'm going to be using that format more often than not. All right. I'm not going to worry about time in here at all. I'm not going to do a thing with the time, just so you know that. There's different ways that you can format this information. Okay. What I'm going to eventually do is give out something like this. All right. And so that's a too long date string. Now, when you work with dates and times, you can break them up into a lot of different things, as you can see. The entire date, just the month, just the date, just the year. And with the time, the hour, the minute, and the second. All right, there's also, as it says, time of day, day of week, week of year, etc. And there are examples of these. All right. And you'll notice there is an is leap year function as well. All right. Now, it says code that uses the day of week property. So what did they do here? This day of week, and there's a day of year. All right, so day of week. And you can check to see if it's Saturday or Sunday, for example. All right. You can do some math with dates. All right. But really, the only type of math that you typically will do with dates is to either add something to a date or maybe compare two dates, subtract one from the other, etc. All right. Now, I stupidly, and one of the reasons I'm going through this first is I stupidly went ahead and started working on the program without taping. All right. I have no excuse for that, but that's what I did. So I made a bunch of changes in here already. Okay. I changed the way the look and feel of this is. I added these two fields in here, a hire date and a birth date. All right. Didn't have to, but that's just what I did. All right. And I also set it up so I'm changing the code around. I haven't really written much code in here, but I changed it around so the system is going to expect when you calculate, it'll do an input first name, then an input last name, then an input hire date, then an input birth date. I have not written these routines yet. Right now, they're just Booleans that return true, and I move this stuff down. All right, so I'm going to be making some changes to this. All right. Now notice as it says here, a statement that uses the minus operator to subtract two dates. All right, and once you do that, there's a lot of different things that you can do with this. All right, if you say, I don't understand, you will hopefully when we get going. Okay, all right, an if statement that uses the greater than operator on dates. So you can do a little bit of logic with these. Code that uses an indexer to access a character. Now we're moving into strings. Now, one thing about this, okay, just so you're aware of this, I'm going to add some stuff in here. But if I do this, if I say string, get rid of that, greeting equals hello. I'm just making this up. It doesn't mean anything, okay? So string greeting equals hello. All right. Really, when you work with a string like that, one thing you can do, and this is what the author is saying here, all right, and that is you can also set this up as opposed to working with a string, you can use it as though, all right, it was a character array. So if I'm going to say here char, well, they use ABC, and I don't know why you do that. Char, let's say C1 for character 1, equals greeting 0, like that. All right, and if we make 5 of these, all right, and we make them C2, C3, C4, and actually what we should do is I'll make that a 4, I'll make that a 3, I'll make that a 2, I'll make that a 1, and I'll make that a 0. All right, and we'll make these 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so just like they show up here, All right, this will be the H. The E, the L, and the O. I'll just fix these up in just a second. All right. All right, so this, for lack of better words, and I don't know why it's giving me these things. I want those, but let's see if I can get those in here. Those are all okay, but these aren't. There. All right. So you can actually take a string and treat it as though it's an array of characters. And that's kind of what we're doing then right here. I don't know why it's doing that, but it is. All right. Now, would you want to do that? It depends. Sometimes there's things you can do with strings that you can't do with characters or vice versa. All right. So here as it says, this is a for loop that is accessing each character that's in there. Or you could use a for each loop. All right. Now, some of the string methods, and I should have brought this up a long time ago and did not. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to go out to learn.microsoft.com. Just that. Learn.microsoft.com. This right here, and I'm going to put this in here, it puts the EN and US in there. You don't have to worry about that. I mean, in other words, you don't have to add that. All right. But if I come to here, all right, and put in that, okay, so again, really all I need from this is the learn.microsoft.com. So if I put that in, I'm going to get here. This is kind of like the Nirvana. This is where you come to find out anything. So what do I mean? Well, I'm going to search in here. I'm going to come in here. You can search here or here. I typically search here. I'm going to type in C# date time object. All right, let's try date time methods and see if they have those. All right, so date time to string, convert strings to date time, converting times between time zones. All right, methods, okay. Let's just go back and change that just to date time. See what we get with that. All right, date time, well, pretty much the same thing. How about if I try date time object? Again, pretty much the same thing. All right. How about this? How about C# string methods? How to search strings, how to compare strings, etc. How about string data type? All right, how to search strings, the type system, etc. It's not giving me what I want, so let's see if we can do it this way. C# string methods. All right, string class, I guess that's what I wanted, was the class. And when you look here, they show you how to use it. All right, but if I go down far enough, they're going to show me in here the different methods that are available. I know they will. They may be down a ways. So you saw comparing ordering, etc. So I guess they're actually showing them in here. I thought there would be, let's see, string operations by category. So comparing, testing for equality, finding characters within a string, etc. And my guess is if I do the same thing that we just did here, but instead of string class, I put in date time class, I'm going to get the same type of thing. But again, in this case, for date time. All right. So the learn.microsoft.com is a great place. Let's see if we can do this. How about if we go to W3 Schools, C# date time methods. All right. So here's the C# tutorial. Somewhere in here, you know as well as I do, there's data types. There's going to be something in here with date time. I don't know where, but it'll be in here. All right, scientific number, Booleans. Let's see. Do they have date? No, of course they wouldn't. That'd be way too simple, wouldn't it? How about we check in here? Date, time. Oh, that's I don't want the search. All right, and maybe they don't have as much as I thought they did. I'm going to try C# string methods. C# strings, C# methods. How to create a method? No. How about strings? String length, other methods, to upper, to lower, etc. So you'll find most of them as you can see in here. You'll have to kind of search your way through it. All right. Well, here, this is a Boolean, and this says, does this string start with, all right, ABC? Now I'm looking at this with the starts with and ends with, and it actually looks like these are reversed. It looks like the starts with ABC here it doesn't really start with an ABC, it ends with it. All right, it looks like that should be false and that should be true. I don't know, I don't really care. All right. You can use index of to search for things. When you're doing this, basically what you're doing, for lack of better words, all right, is you're doing a substrings. You're searching for something, a string within a string. So this says, where is the first blank space? Well, there is 0, 1, 2, 3. So the first blank would be 4. All right. Now, where is INC? It doesn't exist in here. So with many of these string methods, if you search for something and you don't find it, it returns -1. Here is the last index. So this says, show me that last blank space. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there's a lot of different things. I mean, the examples they're giving here are kind of silly examples. All right. Remove, insert, and replace, you can go in and actually do, for lack of better words, sort of the equivalent of what you would do with Word, for example. All right. The substring, again, is there a string within a string? All right. And the 2 upper and 2 lower, we've worked with before. Hopefully those just make sense. How to copy one string to another. Now notice when you do this, it copies the value. We've worked with other objects where when you copy, it makes a copy of it, but they both point to the same thing. No, not here. Here there's 2 different strings. S1 has ABC in some area of memory. S2 has, when you start, ABC in another area of memory. So if you change S2 to DEF, you still have an S1 in an ABC in S1. All right. All right. So here they're coming in here and they're doing some parsing. I talked to you about the trim method before, and they're using it here, and that's going to remove this blank space or blank spaces if there were several, and that's going to remove these. When you use trim, it does not remove inner blank spaces like this, just on the outers. All right. So here we're parsing an address. We're going to go through an example program of this in class, I believe, later. So is it important that you understand this? It's important that you understand that when you are working, with strings, that there's a lot of different things that you can do with them. That's the most important thing for you to understand. We're going to use split in a little bit. At least I'm planning on it. All right. Why? I want to show you quickly. We're going to do something like this. So if today is the 3rd of January, so if somebody puts in this, we want to be able to use the split command, and we want to split it, but we're going to split it based on the dash. So that should give us 3 things, 01, 03, and 2024. Why would we want that? We want to make sure that the date we put in has a month between 0, 1, and 12. We want to make sure that the day that we put in is between 1 and 31 for 7 months of the year, 1 and 30 for 4 months of the year, and 1 and 28 for a non-leap year February, and 1 and 29 for a leap year February. And we do have a leap year this year. So we're going to do something similar to what you see in here. All right, and don't let that throw you. It's not going to be that tough. Here's they're going in here and they're formatting the phone number to add hyphens as an example. So there's a lot of places and a lot of things that you can do with this. Here they're replacing hyphens with slashes. We're not going to do anything like that. All right. Now this is new. This is string interpolation. And even though it's new, those of you who were in the AWD1000 class last semester with me, we did do a little bit of work with interpolation in JavaScript. You do similar work in here. All right. So notice what we have here. We've got string first name equal Bob, string last name equal Smith. Well, we could have just done this. We could have said string name equal, and let me get rid of this. And we could have said last name plus a comma and a space plus first name. And that would work just fine. And that's essentially what we're doing right here. We're using interpolation. Interpolation starts with a $sign here. And then what you want to interpolate goes within the double quotes, but any variable that you want its value, you put inside of curly braces. So I've just shown you there are 2 ways of doing the same thing. And we'll talk more about interpolation in a little bit later. And there's a lot of different ways that it can be used. Again, I've mentioned this in earlier lectures. My goal is not to confuse people. It's just the opposite. So yes, first of all, we're using, I believe, C# version 8, not 11. All right. So some of this stuff, like 10 here, may or may not even work. I don't know. All right. These are new. This is an interpolated raw string literal. It's kind of cool. You'll notice it starts still with a dollar sign, but it has 3 double quotes. And it ends with 3 double quotes. So what that'll do is it allows you to take information like this and put it over multiple lines. All right, if indeed that's what you wanted to do. All right. A parse method that allows entries with any of the allowable content. Now, it's saying here decimal.parse, all right, and it's allowing for different types of number styles when you're doing that. Here's one, kind of neat, because as it says, it allows a dollar sign and a decimal point. Well, the decimal point should always work, but here it also allows the dollar sign or currency symbol. All right. The next thing that's in here, you might find this a little confusing, so I'm going to show you, and I'm going to draw you a little picture for lack of better words. All right. So let me come in here and do that here. All right. Imagine that I do this. And again, this isn't going to be anything like super brand new or anything like that. But I'm going to say here, string fname equals Jeff. String lname equals Scott. All right. String full for full name equals, and I could do this 2 ways. All right. You just learned this, that I can come in here and I can put in, for example, a dollar sign, then double quotes, and I can put in fname with a space, and then whoops, lname, like that. And that's going to result in Jeff space Scott. Okay. I can also say string, we'll call this full 1. Let's make a string for full 2 and have that be equal to fname plus a blank space plus lname. And again, that's going to be equal to my name. So both of those work. All right. Now, I just want to mention something to you regarding this before we go over this. Let's say that later on in my program, I change fname. So later on in the program, someplace later on in here, I say fname equals Jeffrey, which is my real full name, full first name. Now, if I've got the stuff like this, these have already been set. So that's not going to change this to Jeffrey Scott or this to Jeffrey Scott. All right, but one thing that it will do is when I do this, someplace in the memory of the computer, it's going to put aside enough space for that JEFF. All right, and that JEFF, it won't be JEFF. It'll be the zeros and ones the computer understands that'll represent a JEFF. But let's say that it just happens to be an address 1000. So that's where it puts the J. Now, again, it won't be a J. It'll be zeros and ones that mean a J. All right. And 1001 would be the equivalent of the E. 1002 will be the equivalent of the F, the first F. And finally, 1003 will be the holder of the second F. When I go in and do this, I can virtually guarantee you it's not going to go and add the R to 1004, the E to 1005, and the Y to 1006. It's not going to do that. There's a good chance something else was already in those memory locations. So what's going to happen is when I reset F name like this, let's just say that now it's in 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, there it'll put the J. 5, 6, 7, 9. Then there it'll put the E, etc. Let me make this smaller because otherwise it would never fit. All right. 5, 6, 8, 0, it'll put an F. 5, 6, 8, 1, it'll put another F. 5, 6, 8, 2, it'll put the R. 5, 6, 8, 3, it'll put the E. And 5, 6, 8, 4, it'll put the Y. Now again, it doesn't actually put in J. It puts in the machine language or the zeros and one combination of the letter J that the system understands. That's not what's important here. All right. What is important here is it does this. Then the system basically goes and it says, it for lack of better words, it takes 1000, 1001, 1002, and 1003 and marks them, and it says, hey, these aren't really being used anymore. So the next time the operating system comes through and it checks, it can get rid of those. So why am I even telling you that? It's because strings are what are called immutable. If you change the value that's in a string, it gets changed where it is in memory. All right? Is that a big thing? It can be. But string builders are immutable. So if I wanted to build something, a first name, a middle name, and a last name together, and then put it into full name, all right, I could use a string builder to do that. Now, when you build a string builder like this, all right, when you do this, if you don't give it any kind of size, it automatically takes up 16 bytes. You can give it a size. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. All right, and it looks like it gave it 16 here because we didn't give it the exact number we wanted. 16 is kind of the magic number right here. All right. So why would you even want to use this? If you want to build something on the fly and then stick it into a string, what many users do is they use a string builder to do it. You don't have to do it that way. It's one of those things where there's a bunch of different ways of doing the same thing. All right. Okay, now what's next here is statements as it says that format different numbers. And we're doing something different than we did before. We've always used the name of the variable dot toString. And then in that dot toString, we have put like a C in there, for example. And that C has represented currency. We might have even used the P for percentage. I think we did that at least once. And there's other ones that can be used also. This is yet another way to use the string.format command to do this. There is absolutely nothing wrong with what we've been doing thus far. Nothing. Nothing. But this is another way that you can format. All right? You can format dates and times as well. All right? So you can format regular numbers, dates and times, etc. All right, that's pretty much it for this chapter. I didn't think that this part of the lecture would take that long. I'm not going to save my changes, and I'm only 35 minutes in, but I'm not going to stop yet. I want to show you first what I did. I made a copy of Payroll 4. In fact, let me bring that one up. You may or may not remember this. All right. But if I run it, it looks like this. All right. So that is the Chapter 4 one. Now, I didn't change the name yet, which I should have, but I didn't. But if I come in here and bring up the one for Chapter 5 and I run this, all right, you can see the difference between these two. All right. I have put everything together on here, where here I had it in two columns. I had the buttons down below. I put the buttons down the side. Did I have to do that? Of course not. But I wanted to set it up so that everything that the user has to input in here, and that's the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields, they're all together. I wanted it like that. I thought it made more sense to do that. All right. I've done almost nothing in this program. All right. In this new updated version of the program, other than add those, move the stuff around, and I have added. So when you call calculate, it does the input first name, then the input last name. Now it does an input hire date and an input birth date. All right. Plus, if you look on here, I'm going to get rid of this one. All right. If I click help, I added a couple rules in here, including the help button. It says, assume the company was founded January 1st, 1999. So the earliest hire date that you're going to be able to put in for somebody is 1/1/1999, or is it really 01/01? I should change that, 1999. And the latest would be today. Okay. Also, assume that an employee must be 21 years of age to work at a place. Now, I could add other things. I could go in there and I could add how many years until you can retire at 65, etc. I didn't do any of that stuff. All right, but I do want to come in here and for this help, all right, I'm going to change this to 01/01/1999. All right, so if I save that and again click the help, it's now 01, and that's what I wanted. All right, so what I'm going to do then is a couple things. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do this stuff. All right, but what I want to do is I want to come in here and put in something like this. Let's assume that I was hired, I don't know, December 19th of 2008. In fact, let's use I was 07/05. I think it was like 2016. Okay, now that's valid after I put in this. But I'm going to use the split command, and I'm going to split this into 7 and 5 and 2016. Why? I want to make sure that the month that gets put in is between 0, 1, and 12. I want to make sure that for January, March, May, July, August, October, and December, for those 7 months, so that includes this one, that the day is between 1 and 31. I also want to make sure for the hire date, all right, I want to make sure for the hire date that it is between 1999 and the current date. Now that I think about it, I might want to check the birth date first. All right, because if you're not 21, you shouldn't be hired anyway. So I think what I'll do is I'll flip these two. All right, that's not going to be hard. I'm just going to grab all this, unlock it, and then just move them. Okay. Now that was nothing to do. All right. I mean, literally it took a matter of seconds, right? And I'll relock this back up. Okay. But one thing I have to do, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but just so you know, now when I calculate, what I was doing is I was doing the higher date than the birth date. I want to flip these. So I want this to be birth, and I want this to be higher. So I will check the birth date first, then the higher date. All right, so this will have to be changed too. So birth, 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 and these will have to change to higher, 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 and this will again be, in this case, yeah, that's it. All right. Now, right now, if you look in here, all I'm doing, and let's flip these as well. So all I'm doing for the birth date and higher date is just returning true. That's it. Of course, that's not what I want to do. All right. Now, one of the things that we've done before is if it's empty, all right, just like with the first name, okay, and I probably should look at writing a better routine than what I've got here, but I'm going to grab this and I'm going to put it in here and I'm going to put it in here. All right. Why? Well, we're doing the birth date first. So if txt birthdate.text is empty, we'll throw an argument exception. All right. And we'll say system message, and you must enter a birth date and no birth date input. And this will be birth date. And this will be birth date. All right, down here it'll be similar, but it'll be higher date. So this is no birth date. All right, check for no higher date. Again, I'll be making a bunch of changes here to txt higher date. All right, let's grab all those. And you must enter a higher date. No higher date input. And we'll change these two accordingly. Now, what should have happened with this, all right, that wasn't in here before, I just put the code in before your eyes. And that is that if I do come in here and don't put in a birth date and click calculate, all right, I get value does not fall within the specified range. You must enter a birth date. And it puts it there. So if I do put something in here, I mean, for now I can just put in hello. It doesn't matter. But now it's giving me the same thing for the higher date. You must enter a higher date. So again, I can put in hello there, come in for my hours worked, put in 40, put in an hourly rate of 20, all right, and click calculate, and everything is hunky-dory, so to speak. So there's more things that I have to do here and here. All right. Now, one thing that I was thinking of doing, and I don't have to do this, all right, but I'm thinking when I get done, All right. I'm not worried so much about my final totals in here. They're going to be fine. But when I click calculate and I get done, I kind of want to come up with this. In other words, I want to come up with a message box that has the first name, the last name, the birth date, the hire date, the hours worked, the hourly rate, and the gross pay. So in other words, just that information for an employee. All right, I'm running out of room on the screen here, so I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to put it in as a message box. All right. But I have to come in here and also, like I said, make sure when I check these. All right. I'm checking it now, and it should handle, all right, it should handle me leaving it blank. But the next thing I want to come in for each one of those and do is check, and I want to see if it's an actual date. All right, so there's more stuff, in other words, that I have to do here. All right, and I think what I'm going to do, I just looked at the time, it's right after 45 minutes. All right, so what I think I'm going to do is think about this myself for a couple minutes, produce this document. All right, and in fact, one thing I can do when I get done with the calculate here, let's see, when I'm totally done with my calculations. So where is that? All right. So the last thing I call is input hourly rate. And after I do my input hourly rate, I'm doing all this stuff. Calculate gross pay. And in calculate gross pay, I'm calling update final totals. Totally fine. Sounds great. But before I update my final totals, let's write another routine that we're going to say, show this employee's info. Now, it gives me an error because I haven't written it yet. So let's quickly in here, we're going to do a private void show this employee's info. You can see I couldn't put that in. When I tried to, that would have been illegal. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to build a string, and then we're going to stop, and I'm going to go on. But I'm going to say string, and I'm just going to call it output str. I use that a lot. I might not have used it much with you guys, but I do use it a lot. And that's going to be equal to, let's see how we build this. Let's put in a $sign here, and we're going to say, oh, not like that, name. All right, and I'll put in a \T, and then we'll put in what do we have in there? Do we have first name? Well, I guess we can use that. It'll be txt first name dot text. All right, dot text. txt first name dot text. Let's see if put that in there. Get rid of that. A space, and then txt last name dot text, and my curly, and end this. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. I just did it right in front of you. But let's look and let's see. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to say message box dot show, and what I'm going to put in here is going to be the output string, and then I'll call this employee's info, current employee info. All right, and we'll put in a message box with buttons, with just an OK button, and I will put in an icon, and I don't want error. All right, it's going to be information. So I just want to see if this works. Come on, I want to put information in there. All right, so let's see. Now, I'm going to put in a valid date, even though I'm not checking it yet. So Jeff Jeff Scott, and in fact, I'm not checking anything else in here yet, so I can just put in garbage here. Okay, and click calculate, and there it is, name Jeff Scott. Okay, so that worked. That's good. All right, so we've got that. Let's keep adding to this. So I'm going to say output str plus equal. I want to add to it, and I'm going to add to it. Hopefully I can still do it like this. I've not tried to do something like this before, but I'm going to say birth date. No, I don't want these curlies yet. So birth date, I need the double quotes. Birth date. Let's change this to employee name. They'll line up a little bit better then. And this will say, again, a \t, and I'll have in here txt birth date. All right, we'll put in that. Next, we're going to put in here hire date. And that'll be txt, and I don't want birth date, I want birth date dot text, and then I'll want hire date dot text, and there's no period over there. All right, so that's what we've got so far, and at the end of each one of these, I'm going to put a \n, so hopefully at least it'll start on a new line. It does not like that. There we go. All right. Like I said, I'm just building this in front of you just to see whether or not it's going to work. So I'm going to come in here. I am going to put in valid stuff. Oops. Try it again. I'm going to assume that my birth date, because I don't like to share stuff like that. I've got to change the tab order. That's a good thing to note. I'm going to assume that it is today, 3, and it's not, but of the year 2000. And I'm going to assume that I was hired 10/31 of 2023. Okay, and I'm going to put a 0 in there because I think I want it to look like that. All right, so the hours, again, 44 and 44, calculate. Now look what I've got: employee name, birth date, hire date. It looks good so far. The only thing I want to add there is hours worked, hourly rate, and gross pay. So hours worked, hourly rate, gross pay. So this will be gross pay. I can use the txt, that's fine. Txt gross pay dot to string, and that will be currency. And it looks like it doesn't like this like that. No overload for string that takes one argument. I've had this error before, and I'm not sure exactly. Oh, it's dot text. That's why. Dot toString. Okay. Still doesn't like something in here. Argument 1 cannot convert from string to system format provider. So let's just do a toString on it. That's okay. I don't really care. All right. So this is the gross pay. This will be the hours worked. And it'll be txt hours worked dot text, And we will again just do a .to string on this. All right, and this will be the hourly rate. Like that. We'll move that over one. You don't have to do this, of course. Just trying to line everything up. Looks like little soldiers there. And this will be txt hourly rate dot text. And again, we'll do that .to string. Okay. All right, let's look at it. Again, I have to change the order of those two fields around in the tab order. That's not my birthday either. And the hire date. Something like that. Hours worked, 40, hourly rate 25. And let's click calculate. And everything, as far as I can tell here, this looks good. I'm not worried about that that's not formatted. But it looks nice, current employee info. And it's going to allow me to do some work in here as well. All right, so there it is. All right, so I'm going to stop right now. And I will tell you one thing. When I sit there and write these things, sometimes I've got an idea in mind, sometimes I don't. By and large, I'm sitting here and just typing this stuff out. But I went out to a thing that's called stackoverflow.com, which you may or may not have heard of. Now, for Stack Overflow, what I did was I typed C# exact age calculation, C#. All right. Now, how do I calculate someone's age in C#? And they've got different ways of doing it in here. Okay, that doesn't look very good. That would give you the code. But, it would say, for example, if let's say that my birthday was a month ago, all right, it would have my age dot and then 1/12. I think that looks kind of ugly. So it says check this. And they've got in here, how do I calculate someone's age based on the date, time, type, birthday? And this is what they have. Unfortunately, it's not complete. All right. In fact, I think it is. It's going to give you how many years old you are. So it's going to grab today, and it's going to subtract the year, the current year, from the year of your birth. All right. And if necessary, it'll remove one from it. Go back to the year in which the person was born in case of a leap year. All right. And let's see. I have no idea if this is going to work. But I'm going to grab that code anyway. And where it's got it up here to, I'm going to make changes to this, but I just wanted you to see what I'm doing. So this is the birth date. All right. I'm not going to return true here yet. All right. No, I want to do something here. So I'm going to var today. So that's going to be today. All right. Var age equal today.year minus birthday.year. Well, what is birthday.year? I don't have that yet. All right. So there's some stuff that's going to have to be fixed in here. All I'm trying to show you is I'm going to want to come in here and do this. Now, one thing I will be able to do, like I said earlier, is to use that split command. And when I split it, I'm going to split it based on the dashes. So I'm going to have to check to make sure that what was put in there was a birth date with those dashes. I don't want to go so nuts with this that this routine and the next one are 50, 60, 100 lines long. I'm going to keep it as simple as I can. You've been told. All right, I'll see you in just a few.